In episode 34, titled Plan the Security Assessment, we chart how to turn a looming evaluation into a controlled project with clear milestones, crisp communications, and no last-minute heroics. A security assessment succeeds when planning removes surprises. Everyone knows what will be tested, when it will be tested, who will be present, and how information will move. The plan is not a ceremonial memo. It is a living itinerary that coordinates calendars, artifacts, and approvals against an agreed sequence. By laying out milestones and daily rhythms in advance, you replace anxiety with choreography. The outcome we want is simple to say and hard to fake. On day 1, the assessors are ready. On day 2, the evidence flows. And by the end, the findings reflect the truth of how controls operate, rather than the chaos of how meetings were arranged. Clarity on roles prevents friction before it starts, so the plan explicitly confirms the sponsor, the third-party assessment organization, 3PAO, and the cloud service provider, CSP, responsibilities. The sponsor owns scope, funding, and ultimate sign-off. The 3PAO owns assessment method, independence, and reporting. The CSP owns demonstrations, evidence production, and timely fixes. These are not abstract labels. The plan names real people for each responsibility, with backups and time zone coverage. It spells out who convenes meetings, who curates artifacts, who grants access, and who adjudicates disputes in the moment. When disagreements arise, as they always do, the written role map lets the coordinator point to the agreed lane and keep forward motion without relitigating the charter midstream. Timing can raise or lower risk, which is why the assessment window aligns with release freezes and readiness rather than tradition or wishful thinking. The plan chooses dates that sit after stabilizing changes and before major cutovers, so the configuration under test remains consistent long enough to be examined. Readiness reviews in the weeks prior confirm that inventories are current, the control summary table reflects reality, and key personnel are available. Where the environment includes multiple regions or products, the plan sequences work so the assessors can reuse context efficiently. A small detail with big payoff appears here. The schedule identifies daily start and stop times, expected durations for demos, and buffer blocks for evidence capture, which prevents the creeping surprises that sabotage momentum. Communication structure turns many teams into one unit. The plan establishes named channels, email lists for formal notices, a persistent chat bridge for rapid coordination, and a reserved video room for screen sharing and interviews. Each channel lists points of contact and escalation paths, including who will answer after hours if access stalls or a configuration snapshot is needed immediately. The plan also defines update rhythms, a daily status summary from the 3PA, a nightly artifact index from the CSP, and a running decision log from the coordinator. Escalations are treated as process, not panic. If an owner misses a window, the next name in the chain is contacted with a timestamped note. These seemingly simple rules hold attention where it belongs, on verification rather than on logistics. Preparation minimizes waste, so the plan includes a pre-assessment artifacts list and an access provisioning approach that gets friction out of the way early. The artifact list names exact items by system and date range, configuration exports, baseline check reports, vulnerability scans with remediation tickets, key management logs, identity policies, change approvals, and restoration test records. Each item lists the repository location and the person accountable for currency. The access plan covers read-only credentials for dashboards, temporary accounts for demonstrations, and pre-approved remote sessions for the 3PA, all issued with least privilege and clear expirations. By moving these steps into the runway, day 1 is reserved for assessment, not account creation. Assessments break down without realistic test data and the right personas, so the plan aligns on seeded accounts, datasets, and permissions that reflect how the system is used. Seeded accounts cover standard users, elevated operators, and administrators with just enough scope to demonstrate control behavior without opening unrelated surfaces. Test data is tagged and reversible with clear cleanup steps so that demonstrations do not leave long-lived artifacts or sensitive content behind. The plan explains how least privilege is preserved during demos. The 3PAO asks for specific actions, operators perform them in monitored sessions, and logs capture both request and result. This structure lets the assessor see controls in motion without granting blanket access that would blur lines of responsibility. Cadence matters, so the plan schedules a scoping call, a formal kickoff meeting, and a daily stand-up rhythm that keeps decisions flowing. The scoping call revisits assumptions and confirms that the control set, boundary, inheritance, and shared responsibilities match what the SSP says. The kickoff introduces the entire team, reviews the objectives, and walks the calendar so no one is surprised by the first day's asks. Daily stand-ups then review what was verified, what evidence remains, what blockers exist, and what is queued for tomorrow, all in 15 minutes with minutes taken. This tempo keeps energy high and ensures that small misunderstandings are corrected while they are still small. Every plan has constraints, and writing them down prevents later arguments from masquerading as emergencies. The plan lists blackout periods when key staff are unavailable or when production changes cannot be paused. It names dependencies on third-party approvals for interconnection testing or evidence sharing and sets deadlines to request and receive those approvals. It records bandwidth limits, such as a window when a database cannot support load tests, and suggests acceptable alternatives the 3PAO can use to verify controls without jeopardizing stability. By acknowledging constraints early, the team can design around them rather than colliding with them at the worst moment. Fixes during an assessment are common and welcome when managed openly, so the plan includes retest windows for issues likely to be resolved in flight. When a gap is found and a feasible fix exists, the team records the change, arranges a quick retest slot within the window, and captures evidence that shows the control now behaves as intended. The plan distinguishes between quick remediations suited to the window policy changes, configuration updates, access corrections, and larger design shifts that should proceed to a tracked plan of action with a follow-up assessment. This approach respects both rigor and velocity. Problems are not hidden and improvements are not delayed. Documentation logistics deserve the same care as testing because clarity on format and submission prevents delays and rework. The plan decides document templates, naming conventions, and how screenshots, exports, and logs will be labeled so that cross-references remain reliable. It defines the secure submission method for evidence encrypted transfer, protected repositories, or assessment portals, and assigns responsibility for packaging and checksum verification. Version control is explicit. Updated artifacts carry dates and change notes, and superseded copies are archived rather than overwritten. These practices sound small, but they save hours when an assessor asks, "Can I see the exact configuration from Tuesday morning?" And the team can answer in one step. Before locking the schedule, the coordinator performs a quick review that checks goals, dates, communications, artifacts, constraints, and retests for coherence. Goals are reread to ensure the plan still aims at verification, evidence, and residual risk evaluation. Dates are scanned for overlapping commitments and resource conflicts. Communications are tested, mailing lists, chat rooms, and video links all open, and a dry run moves a sample artifact through the chosen submission channel to confirm it arrives intact. Constraints are cross-checked against the calendar, and retest windows are placed where they will be used, not where they look tidy. This 5-minute discipline saves 5 hours later. To close, a plan is locked when responsibilities, objectives, windows, channels, artifacts, freezes, test data, meetings, constraints, retests, and documentation mechanics all align in one narrative that the sponsor, the 3PAO, and the CSP endorse. The next action is specific and short. Circulate the assessment plan draft for comment to named owners, capture approvals with dates, and publish the final version with a visible link on the Project Hub. When that link becomes the single source of truth, the team walks into day one prepared, the assessors begin with momentum, and the findings reflect reality rather than improvisation. That is how a security assessment becomes an orderly demonstration of control, not a scramble to remember where the controls live. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.